This is the audience for my speech. Okay, here, you get. Here.
Yeah, got that?
No, well, let's get going. Sports is one of the most important activities in a lot of people's lives. The amount of work that goes into the sport and the amount of time and hours that they really put in is just something that's really important to a lot of people. And having that ruined by something completely out of your control is just truly not fair, and it's just something that's one of the bigger problems in sports. After vast amounts of research and me playing in a variety of different sports and activities throughout my life, I can definitely say that I have some credibility when it comes to this topic. The 2023 article, Why Males Who Identify as Transgender Should Not Compete in Women's Sports, state that, is it fair for male athletes to compete against female athletes? No. And that answer isn't based on common sense. The science is conclusive. Having male athletes who identify as transgender should not be allowed to compete in women's sports due to it ruining the integrity of women's sports, there being heavy safety risks, and ultimately it levels the playing field. To further understand how transgender athletes affect women's sports, knowing how women's sports originated is key. Women's sports have constantly been growing at a rapid pace. So one of the first things that happened was Title IX. Title IX was established in 1870. And before Title IX, women's sports were kind of just like a recreational thing. It wasn't nothing really too serious. It was just kind of like outside, just like almost kind of like playing outside in your backyard. In an article written in 2008 by the sport journal titled Coe Warns Transgenders, Sebastian Coe has claimed that the integrity and future of women's sports is at stake after American swimmer Leah Thomas became the first transgender woman to win NCAA swimming championship last week. This quote from Sebastian Coe is important because he's one of the main leaders and he's the president of the International Association of Athletics Federation. So he's also multiple-time gold medal for track. So he definitely knows what he's talking about, especially when it comes to a topic like that. The risks of the integrity of the sport are very important, but there's a bigger risk with that being the health of the players and the safety. One of the most popular cases in transgender athletes was one that happened in North Carolina in a volleyball game. There was two schools met for like a regular volleyball game, but one of the schools had a transgender athlete who identified as a female. This is where the biological boy spiked the ball as hard as he could, and it hit the girl in the side of the head at north of 80 miles an hour. This could only be achieved by a male. No female could ever hit a ball that hard. So she suffered severe damage. An article released in April 2023 titled Injured Volleyball Player Speaks Out After Alleged Transgender Opponent Spiked Ball at Her. She mentioned how she had severe damage and how even small stuff like her at school, which you wouldn't really think about, she couldn't retain information that she was told. She would easily forget it, and she had severe effects after the concussion that she had. Another quote she said is, "I'm here for every biological female athlete behind me. My little sister, my cousins, my teammates. I may be the first to come to you with an injury, but if this doesn't pass, I won't be the last." This quote was directly from her mentioning how dangerous it is. She went on to mention how it's affected her educationally as well. With the biological differences between the two, it would create a lot of possible places for harm, especially if it's more of a contact-based sport, more like basketball or such. Ultimately, even the risks that are imposed with that's not the main argument point. The main argument point would be that it's not a safe field for everyone. The main reason for this would be due to genetics. Men are simply stronger, taller, faster, and that's strictly due to physiology. In a 2022 article titled Trans Women Elite Athletes, Their Extra Percentage Relative to Female Physiology, a quote stuck out to me being, "Without the sex division, females would have little chance of winning because males are faster, stronger, and have greater endurance capabilities. Male physiology underpins their better athletic performance, increased muscle mass, strength, bones, different skeletal structures, better adapted cardiorespiratory systems, and early developmental effects on brain networks that wires males to be more aggressive and more competitive. This stuck out to me because it proves what I kind of already knew. You kind of see it in everyday life, especially in high school sports, where you see males are a lot more competitive and they're more aggressive and they're more physical than typically female sports are. This topic is very controversial because it deals with fairness. Throughout everyone's lives, you always hear about how everything wants to be fair and equal. And this is why it's such a big deal, is because the science between the two is just simply not fair, especially when you just look at the genetics between the two. In significant events throughout track and field, there'd be no woman who would come close to the men. Track and field is a good example for data to look at because there's no area for interpretation, and it's just straight up facts and numbers. So it's easy to see the difference. So when males hit the age of roughly 12 to 14, they hit puberty, and the amount of testosterone that rushes through their body when they're in puberty is unmatched, and the development that they have through their bones is something that cannot be replicated or even similarly developed by any female. In summary, transgender athletes should not be competing in women's sports. In general, biological males who identify as transgender should not be able to participate in women's sports because it will ruin the integrity and the future of women's sports over the next couple of years. There's a lot of safety risks, especially in contact sports, and it's just not fair for the true females who really do want to pursue their athletic career. In making this change in your local community, even state, can help make a big difference and ultimately make everything more even for everyone. For the many reasons I previously mentioned, keeping transgender athletes out of women's sports will increase the growth of women's sports in the near future.